Well, here we are, and I see Deb popped in just as I was hitting go live. I'm like, good. I know I'm not all alone. I was a little concerned if I don't see anybody coming into the chat early. I'm like, man, I hope people are going to be here. So yeah, how's it been, Deb? Has it been a busy day? I should have thought I had. Well, but then this is the only day this week that I knew that Jace wasn't going to be here. But I didn't think about how busy I was going to be today because duh. So, I mean, I don't know what calendar you follow, so any of you that are coming in watching us, if you keep the feast and all that, and if you're on the same calendar as me, then today is the day after the first day of unleavened bread, which means yesterday was a holiday, a holy day. And so it was a rest day. So no work. Thus, I got catch up to do. And then tomorrow's another day of no work. So I have more. I got to get ahead. But we're also having a potluck tomorrow with our fellowship. And so I'm going to make some more of my cracker bread. I already made some. And I know that I do have a recipe in a short with the written recipe linked in the description of that short. It's really easy. It's our favorite when it comes to a flatbread to have. Well, any time of the year, really, it's great. I try to really save it for Passover week, week of unleavened bread, because I just really, really want to enjoy it. And Jace, he loves my cracker bread. He really, really loves it. And let me tell you something I tried differently this time. I had a brine that I saved um, from brining some meat, and I went ahead and saved it because I'm thinking, I know I can use this for something. And I'm like, oh, I know what I can do with it because it's got some herbs and spices and it's already salty. So I left the salt out of the recipe. And then I took a cup of that and warmed it up. I got a bunch of it in the freezer and I got it warm and then made my crackers with that instead of plain water. I used a cup of that instead. Oh man, so good. It added a lot more flavor. It already had some garlic and rosemary and what else did coriander in there. And yeah, really good. So I'm doing that again today. In fact, I have my seeds soaking and I just got done grinding up my barley and wheat flours for the crackers. So when I do a flatbread like the cracker bread, I use only whole grains and seeds in there because I don't have to worry about it being fluffy, right? I don't have to worry about it being too heavy. So, and I just love it. It's like our favorite. And I love that Jace loves it. So just finished feeding the livestock. Good morning. Good morning, Tyler, and everyone else coming in. Linda, I see Linda there. Jen. Um, and well, I'm not going to try to say that. I'm not going to try to pronounce that, but yum, it is good. It is really good. And so, and you might hear chicks again. So I had 4 of the 6 eggs that had been fertilized. So those eggs are the dark olive green, so they're really hard to look in there and see if you've got anything viable. But thankfully, 4 of them were fertilized. All of them are very dark in color, which is what I expected. 3 of them look almost exactly alike, and one is a deep chocolate brown. And today's their first day for being really active. So they're noisy. So Deb says, I made 2 batches of the cracker bread for fellowship last night. I put everything bagel seasoning in it. Ooh, 3 people said they hoped I would be making it again. Cool. Yeah, so it's funny because we actually were meeting last night because 'cause they're on a little bit different schedule than we are because they go by the sighted moon or we go by conjunction moon. Fine. That gives us more time to, we get to have our own little time and then we get to have time with them. It just kinda extends it out and it's great. And so, anyway, uh they were talking about, making unleavened bread and "Has anybody ever used barley?" I'm like, "Me." So I decided, you know what? That'd be the perfect thing to take tomorrow. And then the salmon dip. So I pulled out some of that canned salmon I put up back in 2019 when Patrick went on that fishing trip with his dad, brought back tons of salmon because his dad didn't really want all that, so he sent his share home with us too, so we had a lot. So, and the canned salmon or even the salmon that's been, canned and then, like, whatever's left over I may dehydrate works so good in making, like, a salmon dip, and so that's what I'm gonna do. I've got some cream cheese, getting a room temperature. I get that organic Valley cream cheese from Glory Bean, just buy a case of it. So I got everything I need to make this stuff. That's another thing, another blessing about being prepared is that when you find out the night before, oh, we're gonna have a potluck tomorrow. Gee, what am I gonna make? I mean, there's all kinds of things I could make, but I'm also trying to work around my schedule today. But I don't have to go to the store for anything. I mean, I thought about making a lasagna, and I'm like, no, that's gonna take too long. I mean, yeah. So do homemade crackers ever go stale? They can. I keep ours in, if you keep them in, like, a glass I try to keep them in, like, these big glass containers with the tight fitting lids where they snap into place. They're called Snap Lock or Snap Lock Glass Lock and whatever. I think they go by both names, and, those work really good to keep them from going stale. So, anyway, yeah. And they get eaten up pretty good around here. And I still have a bunch left from the first batch I made, but I wanna take a fresh batch tomorrow and, still make sure we have plenty for us too, because especially since Jace loves them so much, and he's gonna be here later tonight because I think he might be staying the night with us tonight maybe. So, I like to make sure I have plenty of crackers because he loves them, and I know they're good for him because they have all that good stuff that I put in there. Um Let's see. How much time do I have? Let's see, 3 minutes. So some of these topics I'm gonna save. I actually have, the main topic, but since today it's been so crazy, I'm not shooting. I really haven't had time or the ability to shoot like some standalone videos. I'm probably gonna briefly be covering a couple more topics. So hopefully I won't be going too long today, but obviously anyone who can't stay the whole time, I'm hoping to keep it maybe an hour and a half tops. Could go as long as two, depending on how chatty it gets in here. Because right now I only see two people. I don't know, what does it say up here? It says there's 14 people watching, but only two other people are oh wait, no, not two other people. What I'm saying, I'm sorry, because Linda and yeah, sorry. I didn't mean to leave you guys out. What I'm seeing right now is the most recent comment, the last 4. That's all I can see. And so there's only the 2 people. So my throat's a little bit itchy today, but not too bad. So hopefully I'll make it through okay. Maybe I'll do a quick squirt of my elderberry tincture. I think I'm gonna need to top it back off again. And I got my water here and stuff. So I'm gonna put on some of this Dr. Jacobs almond body butter on my hands because I have it in here and it smells really nice. Linda says, I did a little thing. Older me can hardly shake a quart of cream to butter. Oh, so I bought a small crank butter churn. Ooh, nice. I would still, even though we don't have any dairy animals, I would still love to have like an old fashioned butter churn. Not a huge one, a small one, probably more like the size you're talking about, Linda. So yeah. But it's really a good idea though when you think about it, but around here, for what I already have to pay for the cream, I want the cream to stay cream. I don't want to turn it to butter. So I'm buying the butter and the cream from Azure. And I still haven't ordered anything from Misfits in a while. I'm just getting to where, man, I need less and less from them. I'm kind of done with them. I don't want to say I'm entirely done. And even Vitacost, I'm not getting as much from Vitacost anymore. So that's kind of cool. All right, so it is time. So hello, everyone. Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And today I decided I wanted to do a different topic today, but then I decided I wanted to just kind of stay on this topic right now about the three food items that I store, especially with everything going on that some people now, every time there's some new big event, that's when a lot of people start going, "Oh, maybe I should be doing this." And so I figured now's a good time to talk about it. And again, with a live show like this, where I've got people that can interact and then I can share your comments, when I do the standalone video for later. That just adds more to it. So, from Romania, hello. Let's see, and of course we got Tammy and Deb both from Florida. So good to see you guys coming in. Thank you. Anyway, so I figure I don't know how many of these I'll do like this, but just picking some of the three random things for each one of these videos that I like to store up and why. And, they're because they do have multiple uses. And that's mostly what I'm looking at when it comes to that. So there's Hollyhock. You made it again. Yeah, I'm doing okay. I'm a little sore today. My muscles have been really sore because I've been feeling so much better that I've been working harder, like doing my more exercises and then feeling more confident about just doing harder labor, whether it be garden related stuff or moving heavy bags. And I think maybe I might have just pushed myself a little too hard. This isn't like the fatigue from the Epstein-Barr virus. This is fatigue like sore muscles, like I might have pushed myself too hard kind of soreness. So, anyway, and I do think I pulled a muscle in my lower back, which is always just so fun because pulled muscles takes so long to heal, like long time. So anyway, today, the three I'm going to talk about, I'm starting off with nuts. Now, not just one particular kind of nut, just whatever suits you. I like to store quite a few different kinds because I use them in different ways. And, I like to store Brazil nuts, but they're highly expensive. The main reason now I even keep any on hand is it is a good natural source of selenium, and I love Brazil nuts. So I haven't been doing anything fancy with the Brazil nuts. Besides, Patrick doesn't he doesn't like Brazil nuts, he doesn't like walnuts, and he doesn't like pecans. So when I stock up on those things, it's more for me. But he likes almonds and peanuts, so I stock up on a lot of those too. And the thing that is just so great about storing up nuts, I mean, you can pick some of the less expensive ones. Usually you can get some good organic almonds, even sliced almonds. I get all that stuff now from Azure Standard, and they're not going to be near as expensive as like macadamia nuts or Brazil nuts, which I mean, they're super expensive now. So I'd like to get some more because I think I'm starting to run low. But the thing with nuts is not only are they just a good added source of protein to have on hand, that can also be different than certain other types of protein and maybe you're getting burned out on, but they have multiple purposes. So if you have peanuts, especially if you have a grain mill like ours where you have a peanut butter auger, you can make your different nut butters using that. And then you've got obviously, adding nuts to treats or just eating them as needed as you want to. Patrick just loves to snack on not sesame seeds, excuse me, not that. Sunflower seeds and peanuts are a couple of his two favorite things to just snack on. So I always have those on hand for him to take when he's going to work or doing whatever he's doing, going down to the property here to work on something. So he has some instant protein that he can snack on. That's normally what he has. So uh, yes, Tyler, you count. You count. But at least she doesn't have to vacuum seal you or throw you into a freezer to keep you from going rancid. But then again, I don't know. I don't know how spoiled you are. Maybe she does need to do that every now and then, or if nothing else, at least to put you on timeout. Um, cinnamon sugar pecans, that sounds yummy. Um, but I mean, So obviously you can use them in cookies and breads and like I did the when last year when I was just creating a whole bunch of cinnamon roll. I got I got on a tangent and just was creating all these new cinnamon roll recipes. Not all of them necessarily had cinnamon, but I did the chocolate peanut butter ones, and then I put I took some peanuts and then just kinda crushed them with my mortar and pestle and then sprinkled them on top, and, there's so much you can do with them, but then to top it off, if especially for people who have someone who has to be dairy-free in the home, or maybe they just choose to be vegan, having all different kinds of nuts on hand means you can make your own, uh dairy, non-dairy milk products and cheese products, and then you can even use the pulp from those nuts after you make the milk I use the pulp from certain nuts, like when I do a pecan cashew blend is perfect because you can take that pulp and it's really great for making like a non-dairy cheese. It just the flavor's good, the texture's good. Not all nuts work that like if you try to do pecan by itself, the pulp alone, it works, but it's just not the same. It doesn't have that same creamy texture that the cashews add. And the two just make a perfect combination for that. But then you can also take from any of it, whether it be like coconut or almond or Brazil nut or hazelnut or whatever it is that you're using to make your dairy-free milk, you can take that pulp and then dry it out and then uh, just powder it up really good once it's fully dry. And now you have a good gluten-free flour replacement or just a flour that you can add in with your regular flour to add more nutrition, more protein and the like, or even more flavor. I've used like the Brazil nut milk pulp that I then added to a bread. Was it a banana bread? I don't remember. I might even have, I think I have a video on it. Maybe it was the apple spice bread. And I used the Brazil nut pulp in there too. I didn't even bother drying it out. Because usually your sweet breads like that are a wetter dough anyway. I just threw it in as is. But then if you're wanting to put it up for, like you don't want to use it up right away, you can just dehydrate it and then powder it and then vacuum seal it in a jar and save it for when you need it. But so these are some of the reasons I really like having nuts and seeds on hand is for all those things. Well, I said I was focusing mostly on nuts, but this goes for seeds too. Especially like the sunflower seeds, but then also like seeds like chia and flax and black seed. In fact, my crackers, the cracker bread dough or mixture. Right now I have the seeds soaking while I'm doing the show, and I did put the black seed, the flax seed, and sounds like I said the same thing twice. Black seed, flax seed, and chia seeds in there to soak in that brine, that warmed up brine water. And then when I'm done, I added 1 cup of flour, and then I'll go add the rest of the flour and mix it in and knead it and then get my crackers made. But anyway, that's also a way that especially with your seeds, there's a lot of minerals in a lot of the different seeds that you can incorporate into your different baked goods to just really increase the nutrient value of your foods. I mean, black seed has a stronger flavor, so I don't like to add that to everything. Not typically will I add that to something like if I'm making a bread dough and I'm gonna use it to make cinnamon rolls or something like that, I'm not gonna add black seed in there. That's just my personal preference, but I will add the flax and the chia because they blend well with anything, and then just increase that nutrient value. And, so yeah, that's just some of the reasons there why I like to stock up on that stuff. So did anybody else have any idea, any yeah, any ideas? See, Tyler says store fresh eggs. We keep them inside our chickens and guineas. There you go. Same here. Okay, so any other ideas besides Tyler's? Why do you boil peanuts in your pantry? Is this another joke? What is this? Let's see. Can raw green peanuts? I can. I can raw green peanuts and end up with my own boiled peanuts in the pantry, so that's Tyler's question in regards to that. I have never had boiled peanuts. I've heard about this. I've heard about it. I've never tried it. I know some people really like that. Boy, Deb and Tyler, you guys the only are pretty much the only ones that have much to say. Where is everybody? You know what? I bet I know what's going on. People are probably listening, but they're busy like the rest of us trying to get stuff done and they don't have time to sit there and type the whole time. Yeah, I thought it was a southern thing. I thought I'd heard that. Never tried it. Makes me want to try it though, but I always forget. I'll probably never remember. Do people typically boil them in the shell or do they shell them and then boil them? Anyway, I'm curious. So, okay. So the next since I don't see yep. That's yeah, she's yep, that's exactly what's going on. I'm here, I'm listening, but doggone it, I got things to do. Let's see, boil in the shell with salt. That's what I thought I had read in the shell. Okay. I am listening, busy, busy. Yep. Okay, cool. Totally, totally get it. I mean, if I could be getting other stuff done while I'm doing this, that would be wonderful. 'Cause I have so much to catch up on today. Oh my goodness. So anyway, and then next week's gonna be a little crazy too. So I'm like, man, I gotta figure out my schedule for next week. And then after this next week, I should be able to fall back into a rhythm. Though with Jace, I never know, is he gonna be here on Wednesday or Friday? Or who knows? But I'm thinking next week, I'm thinking I might be able to do it on Wednesday, but then it's just gonna depend on no, I can't do it on Wednesday. Nope. So probably Friday next week too. So it's fine. I know some people can catch the show easier on Fridays and some easier on Wednesdays, and some are like, yeah, whatever. I'll squeeze in what I can. Okay, so see, Linda says, I'm just listening and I don't like boiled peanuts. Oh, you don't like them. Yeah, I've never tried them. I'd be willing to try for certain because I've heard a lot of good stuff, but there's never a problem with a little one in the background. No worries. I get that. And you know what? I appreciate people saying that. A lot of it's more for my own sanity, if nothing else. Because then I'm like, okay, what are you doing? Quit it. Now stop that. Anyway, all right. So the next one, and I mean, some of the stuff I've talked about so much and have done separate videos on, but I do kind of like to bring some of this stuff back in the form of lists to get people to think, especially if I can get more interaction from people that can throw out their own ideas of why would you store up nuts of your favorite varieties? What are some of the other purposes besides adding to cookies or just eating as a snack? Because I'm always going to say the same thing over and over, and I like to get more interaction. So even if people are watching this later, put your ideas down in comments, or if this is the standalone video that I'm going to take and edit and add pictures and stuff, put your comments put your ideas in the comments under that as well. Because the more people can get an idea to think, is it worth it to me to store something like that? And I should add, by the way, when it comes to storing nuts and seeds, I always vacuum seal into jars. You don't want to just leave your nuts in whatever they came in or not vacuum seal. The two best options for storing them long term is to freeze them or to vacuum seal. Vacuum sealing will prevent them from going rancid. It's being exposed to oxygen for too long of a period of time. Um, that's what causes them to go rancid. And too high of a heat as well too, but mostly that oxygen exposure. If my jars stay vacuum sealed, I can have nuts and seeds stored for years and years, no matter how fatty they are, and they do not go rancid. However, I have found a couple of jars that either I forgot to vacuum seal after I opened them, and then they got buried in the back of the pantry and forgot about, or kitchen cabinet, or they came unsealed in storage. So from this point on, anytime I vacuum seal any, especially the more expensive ones like the Brazil nuts and such, I will only use the Superb lids to vacuum seal them in because I haven't had issues with losing a seal with my Superb lids where the newer Ball and Kerr ones, whether I use brand new ones or used ones, they don't hold their seal like they once used to, but the Superb do, and I think you could probably knock those around quite a bit without them losing their seal. Sometimes the jars can get knocked together, and that can cause them to lose their seal, which again is another good reason to keep a band on there nice and tight, but even then, if the oxygen can get into the jar, your nuts will go rancid. So, whatever works best for you, I like to vacuum seal because it saves freezer space for meats and what other things that I prefer to freeze. Well, I do like to can a lot of meats and dehydrate, but I really prefer to freeze first and then dehydrate and can whatever, mostly dehydrate these days, whatever is left after I make something out of something that I thawed out. If I'm not finding other ways to use it up immediately. So I vacuum sealed whole cooked Dungeness crab. Not a good idea. It crushed the shell into very small bits. So, did you was I'm assuming that, you were freezing it as well? But that is something to think about. Certain things to vacuum seal, depending on what they are, can, you know, they could get crushed. I've never tried vacuum sealing marshmallows. I thought about trying it for the heck of it. I'm assuming the marshmallows would go and kinda crush, but wouldn't they just kinda puff back up when you open the jar? I haven't tried it yet. Has anyone tried that? I'm curious now. I keep saying I'm gonna try it, but I haven't tried it yet. In a situation where getting a proper nutrition was difficult, adding nuts is a nutritional bomb. Yes, Linda, thank you. Right. So, and if you have any, I'm gonna move on to the next topic, but if anyone else has any other ideas, feel free to go ahead and throw them in there, and hopefully I'll remember to see it or look back and then try to share that. So, man, are y'all okay over there? I had one, which I'm pretty sure must be a male because it came out first. That again, this time that hatched out a whole day early. Or last time I had two that hatched out a day early, so at least they had each other before the other three hatched out. This time it was this one. He was all alone for a whole day before the other three finally hatched out. I felt so sorry, but I noticed that because I kept coming in and giving it attention because I was worried about it being all alone. Um, I noticed that one seems really friendly. Every time I walk by, I think it's a male. Every time I walk up there, it runs over to the little window I have in the side of the box that we made there. So they're pretty cute, but they're noisy. But yeah, they're just getting to where they're walking around and feeding themselves and drinking water and stuff. I mean, they were doing that a little bit yesterday, but today they're definitely way active. No more wobbliness. Okay, so the second item is dairy powders. So I feel like I've talked about these a lot, but I've talked about a lot of this stuff a lot. But I want to explain, probably clarify the number one reason why I store dairy powders. And I've tried various different kinds. And when it comes right down, I've got buttermilk powder, I've got heavy cream powder, butter powder, whole milk powder. But if I just, I even have cream cheese powder, sour cream powder, a lot of it just to try it out or to have it on hand in a pinch. That's the main thing. If I don't have access to fresh dairy, then I wanna know I have something as a backup. But let me touch on the buttermilk thing. I won't stock up on any more buttermilk powder because I prefer, well, I shouldn't say that, but my preferred way to for buttermilk, um, is to simply just take whole milk and add some lemon juice to it or homemade vinegar and let it curdle. If I need buttermilk for pancakes or biscuits or something, that's what I do. And I like the taste of it way better than the powdered buttermilk. So, I don't know if I'll stock up on more of that. But I could still do the same thing with the whole milk powder. There's something about the buttermilk powder to me now that just doesn't, well, all dairy powders have a powdered dairy flavor to them to some degree, but some taste better than others. Whole milk powder, I actually kind of like. I don't mind it in certain things, but I do try to keep rotating through it. And there are certain things I will use it in, certain things I'll still prefer fresh milk in. So I do like to keep some frozen. But what if I can't get fresh milk and I run out of the frozen? Then I know I have lots of whole milk powder. So the top 3 I will continue to keep stocking up on are the whole milk powder, the butter powder, and the heavy cream powder. And I mean, you wouldn't even need to do the heavy cream powder if you had the whole milk powder and the butter powder, not buttermilk powder, butter powder. Because then you, to get a good, rich, heavy cream powder, just combine the butter powder with the whole milk powder, and there you go. Now you've got a heavy cream powder. It's the thing I like about this is that besides having it on hand for a pin in a pinch, I do currently what I'm doing is using them for making white sauces. That's my favorite thing to use the dairy powders for is any kind of white sauce, whether it be a white sauce for biscuits and gravy or an a la king, like chicken a la king, turkey a la king, or like the meatballs in white gravy that I do, or an Alfredo sauce, anything that's going to have a dairy base. I find that using it in that way, I like it best. And then, like with the butter powder, I do like adding it to my pie crusts and my breads. That doesn't mean I don't still add another fat to it, though I do find I biscuits. So this just still blows me away. I can make biscuits and not put any kind of, no palm shortening, nothing like that, no other fat. Just put butter powder in it and they turn out fluffy and good, and they have that nice little butter flavor in them. I love using the butter powder in biscuits. I'm not saying everybody's gonna love that. I find they turn out really good, though. But in other things like the yeast breads and the pie crust, they're more, I add it more as just a way to add more flavor, that butter flavor in there without having to use my more fresh butter. So I buy, just like with the the whole fresh milk, I buy it from Azure Standard, the butter and the fresh milk. I get Organic Valley milk from them, and then if we get into Costco, I'll get the organic milk, and then from Azure Standard, I get whatever organic grass-fed butter is available. It can vary each month. And then, I freeze a lot of that. I don't think the butter really needs to be frozen, but I only have so much room in the fridge too. So I have a certain allotted spot in my freezer above the refrigerator that I keep all the excess butter. And then you have the butter thing in the fridge. And so I just keep rotating through it. And there are things I'm always going to prefer the fresh butter for. You mean fresh, meaning even if I've frozen it before, over the butter powder, but then I can use the butter powder in other ways that will extend the use of the fresh butter. So that's another reason I like to have those on the hand so I can reserve the fresh butter for things that it's really best with, like on popcorn, on toast, and the like. Though the butter powder works too, and it's fine, fresh butter is better. But yeah, but adding it to other things and helping and then using it in the white sauces. So I use the whole milk powder, the heavy cream powder, and the butter powder all in making a nice rich white sauce. And I don't remember if I have a standalone video just on that. I think what I have is a video on how I use dairy powders. Is it a year old ish? And in that, even in the description, I put a quick typed up a recipe, just a basic recipe of using the dairy powders to make just like a basic white sauce base, but then also another one that's got some added ingredients for a bechamel sauce where I'm going to add eggs. So I'll use powdered eggs in that when I do that. So anyway, let's see if I had anything else in here I wanted to add. And, and then of course there's the obvious uses of like if you run out of fresh milk and you don't have access to more, then yeah, you can whip up a batch of milk and then just put it in your fridge. And again, like I keep saying when it comes to dairy powders, do not bother, do not bother storing non-fat dairy powders. Absolute waste of time. They actually taste worse over time, where the whole powders with all the fat in them, they keep their flavor better, they taste better all the way around, and you're gonna you're gonna need the extra calories. This is what we're this is why I don't get about people who refuse to stock up on things like any kind of sugar, like honey, organic cane sugar, or anything that has fat in it, like whole milk powder. Well, because it's fattening, it's bad for you. Some people are still in this old mindset. No, you need that good, healthy fat. And especially in a grid down situation when calories really matter and you're going to need them, you're going to want those whole milk powders. You're going to want those nuts and seeds and the peanut butters and the on and on. And the sugar, because you're going is if it's a good healthy sugar, maple syrup, raw honey, organic sugar, and I need to stop right now. But anyway, you're going to need those calories in a grid down situation. But obviously, you don't want to live off of just one of them. You're not going to just sit around and eat fat. You're not going to just sit around and eat sugar. You're going to need all of them, just like your plants. And right now, it's vegetables that are being demonized. Yet vegetables have a bunch of nutrients in them that your meats don't have, and your fats don't have, and your dairies don't have, and your fruits don't have. So every food group needs to be covered in some way, especially in a grid down situation where you may not have access to. You guys, pipe down over there. Huh. Where you might not have access to all these things. So growing as much as you can, and if like Tyler and Deb, if you have the ability to have your own dairy animals and meat animals, then yes, go for it. If you can't, then this is where stocking up is important because you're going to need these things. So I'm not going to be one of these AI people or other types, AI people meaning fake persons and even real people that are saying, run out and buy this stuff today. No, I don't talk that way. I try to encourage people to kind of get on the right path and do what you can a little bit at a time to start building your pantry and building up what you need most. Don't run out and buy a 50 or a 50 pounds of whole milk powder if you don't think you're ever going to use it, but maybe somebody in your family will. But maybe it will be best to start with something small, try working with it and see, is this something that's going to be valuable to my pantry? And then look at stocking up on it from that point and then doing what you can. You don't have to run out and say, yeah, I just hate it when I hear that. You need to run out today. Usually it's the AI garbage. Run out now and buy X amount of pounds or so many bags or boxes or whatever of this or that. No, if it's something you've never tried, you need to try it first and see if it's even going to be something that will work for you and your family and work in the recipes that you make. So that's just like the dairy powders, me working with them and finding, okay, what do I like them in best? And using them for white sauces is the way I like them best. And then the butter powder and a few other things. So, but with all that said, well, let me look and see if we got a comment here. I used powdered milk for all my cooking, was buying milk for my hubby, and he would drink one glass and let the rest go bad. Yeah, see, that's the thing. Um, you don't want to see that happen either. And so that's a really good point. And that's why you don't run out and just, you can get, sorry. You don't want to just run out and buy a bunch of stuff and then never be able to use it. And then the dried goat's milk, yes, I stock up on that too. And I'm really glad I did that. I had a bunch in stock when Jace was born because his mom just was not putting out the milk. She didn't wanna put him on the formulas, and thank the Lord for that, and I said, "I know the perfect thing. I have a nice stash here of whole goat milk powder." And he took right to that. I mean, he was getting skinnier and skinnier, shortly after he was born because she kept trying to nurse him and she just wasn't putting out enough milk for him, and he was losing weight, and so it was scary, but he got on that goat milk, and in no time, he plumped up. He didn't get super fat. He got he put on weight, and he got, a little bit of rolls to him, which is what he needed, and it was perfect, and he loved that goat milk, and it was a perfect thing to have on hand. So just yeah, so the, Mayenberg whole goat milk powder was what I was using. There's other brands out there, but that's the one that we've always stuck to. And then I restocked on that, so I still have it on hand just in case because it's a good backup for a formula if if you know someone who's nursing and needs that and they can't, or someone who's just had a baby and they can't nurse, or maybe somebody just adopted a child. A lot of people forget about that when they get all judgy about people not nursing. Maybe they can't because they adopted this baby and they want a good something that's healthy than the garbage formulas that are full of soy and nasty ingredients. So anyway, I'm the oldest of 9 children, and half of my siblings were raised on goat's milk because I could not tolerate cow's milk, and they did just fine. Right, right. Goat's milk is a great replacement, and, I know I've told just in case there's somebody in here that's heard this story for the first time about my grandson. When my daughter-in-law was really having an issue, and she was going to her doctor and get checkups, and they were weighing Jace, and she was really concerned, and she kept trying to she told her that, "Oh, I'm giving him goat's milk," and she's like, "You shouldn't do that. You should be giving him human formula." It's like, "Well, the only human formula I know, I am unable to produce. So, you think that garbage in a can is human? Hello? How dumb. How dumb." And then to top it off, right at that same time, a big scandal came out about even the organic formulas that were being sold and all the toxins, all the heavy metals that were in them. So, anyway, they could oh, see. They could not. Okay, well, I knew what you meant. I knew what you meant. I think I read into what you meant, even though I read it the way you typed it. Scientists Scientists claim we all came from monkeys, but babies raised on goat milk have a second nanny. There you go. My mom was sickly when she had babies and her milk wasn't nutritional enough. We were formula fed. The thing is, I'm not sure how old you are, but a lot of us that were born like in the 60s and 70s or even 80s, a lot of people, formula was really pushed. I mean, there was a time that they were pushing saying formula was healthier than, breast milk, and but the sickly thing, I can get that, sometimes, people have to do what they have to do, and, but yeah, goat milk is an excellent option, and so is A2 cow milk. The difference is the A2 cow milk is actually old style cow milk, really. And that's actually what people used to feed. In fact, if you watch Little House on the Prairie, where they took in this baby, that part's all fictional, I believe, but they took in a baby for a short time. And that was, they basically just found, if I remember, an orphan baby and they took him in and were caring for him. Obviously, she wasn't nursing at the time, so she didn't have any milk to offer, so they were feeding them cow's milk from their own cow. Now, why would that be okay? Because the type of cows, they hadn't all been changed where they'd only produce the A1 protein. They were producing the A2 protein, which is it the protein? Am I saying this right? That properly gets broken down by even the human body. So, it's the modern milks. that you have to watch out for when you're talking about babies or people who are having issues with milk. Where a lot of people who have any issues with dairy have no problem with A2 milk or with goat milk. So people who don't like the taste of goat milk, which if it's good goat milk, I don't mind the taste at all, but I've had some that was terrible. I have had some that was terrible because clearly the female had been around a male that had been in rut. So you could tell it had that kind of wild, nasty flavor. Ugh, I couldn't no, we couldn't use it for anything. It was very, very strong. Tyler was born just after the dinosaurs died out. I can see that. Fresh goat milk is awesome. Yeah, especially if it's from the right kind of goat. Or one that hasn't been eating something to add to the flavor like onions or something like that. See, when I was born, late 50s, they used to recommend evaporated milk and Karo syrup. That was before GMOs and baby formula. It was written right. I've seen that too. In fact, I think I tried that with my oldest for a little while. I was nursing him, but he kept spitting up a lot, and I wondered if it was my milk, so I was trying other things. I finally realized after his cousin was born, it might not have had anything to do with the milk. But I tried the evaporated milk with the Karo syrup. The one thing he did best on was actually the acidophilus whole milk. So he did really good on that because the acidophilus would digest the milk proteins in there. It'd be basically pre-digested, and he did best on that. But I realized it wasn't really so much his stomach or the milk. It was very likely because he had a very large what do you call it? Not epiglottis, but the uvula that comes down, which was my nephew. His was so large he wasn't getting enough oxygen, and they had to run him into Seattle and cut away part of that because he was turning blue. And I thought, I wonder if that was the deal with Ryan, because stuff like that can run in the family that maybe his wasn't big enough to cut off the oxygen, but big enough that it caused him to gag more, and that's probably why he spit up more. I and now that was it Ryan? Yeah, it was Ryan. And thinking about it now that he went through a phase where sometimes he was gagging on stuff, and then he would choke. Was it Ryan? And I think he was choking, and I'd kind of freak out, and then he'd do the fake gagging thing. So, because he got attention. Stinker. Anyway, my husband's mother was raised on canned milk and what is that supposed to say? I wonder if that's a typo. Am I reading that right? Goat milk is the closest to human milk. Yep. A2 milk is still all I can digest. Well, yeah, and I can't remember, Linda, if you're able to or if you've ever looked into some of the Azure stuff, but they do have a powdered whole A2 milk. And I have that on hand too. And I started buying that because I'm like, oh, if they have this, it's more expensive, but if I'm gonna stock up on that, more, I'm gonna start doing that. I still have a lot of other whole milk, but I like to know I have stuff like that in case there's someone who may need something like that they can more easily digest. So, anyway, so moving on, excuse me. Sorry, a little congestion there. Let me drink some water. The last thing I wanted to talk about, I've already kind of hinted at quite a bit, and that is sugars of all types. Oh, how dare I? It's poison. It's poison. It's scary. Just like the vegetables are poison. Don't eat vegetables. They're poison. Don't eat meat. It's poison. Don't eat dairy. Don't eat eggs. They're going to kill you. Okay, obviously, anyone who knows me knows I'm, being sarcastic because I get so doggone tired of every food group. I mean, I remember when it was just sugar or just the eggs, the egg yolk or just the dark meat. And I'm like, when I was a kid, I'm like, the dark meat on the chicken is the best part. What's wrong with people? And now they're telling me it's bad for me. Of course, now they've kind of come full circle on that. And here's a funny thing. I read an article. When I was a teenager, I used to get Shape magazine back when it first came out. It was actually a health magazine and not a fashion magazine. What happened? But anyway, and I really liked it as a teenager. It had a lot of good health advice. But I remember reading, I think it was in that one about how at some point everything is good for you. Everything is being that's being you're told is bad for you at some point is going to be good for you. And at that time, the writer made a joke about at some point chocolate's going to be good for you. And they were joking. And then come to find out, it wasn't a whole lot of years later where they're talking about, well, chocolate's actually good for you in moderation if you eat the right kind. Yeah. So sugar has its place. And obviously, we're not supposed to sit around and just eat sugar. I know I just talked about this, but I got to bring it up again. Obviously, we don't just sit around and eat sugar. It's bad for us to do that, but that doesn't mean that sugar does not have its place. And God gave us sugar cane. He gave us honey and maple syrup and molasses and right? He gave us all this stuff and it all has its place. And even if you weren't going to use the sugar in any of your cooking or baking, you're not going to ever make cookies or homemade chocolates or pies and jams and jellies from your own homegrown berries, apple butters and pear butters. Maybe you're never going to use sugar to do any of that stuff, or chocolate syrup, or caramel sauce, or buttermints. By the way, the orange buttermints, excellent. So the raspberry, wonderful. They turned out so good. So that video is coming out later. But anyway, even if you're just so anti-sugar that you don't want to do that, you're like, well, I'll never do any of that stuff, even in a good down situation, because I don't want to bring joy to my life. Having that sugar on hand, especially like the cane sugar or raw honey for fermentation, you can make your own homemade wines. You can make your own homemade vinegars. And even if you don't drink, that wine can have many uses. I use wine for making homemade medicinal extracts. I use wine for marinating meats and the like. And then the vinegar I use for even more things, for cleaning, for washing my hair with, for using in foods, etc., etc. The list is long. You need to have some kind of sugar. Now, unless you're making your vinegar or your wine out of pure juice that has already got a lot of natural sugars, which here's something when it comes to grapes, most grapes used for making wine are very tart grapes. So sugar has to be added in order to get that alcohol content up. You're not going to get it with just the plain grape juice. Sugar is always added, and honey can be used too. This is where you can make wine out of just honey and water. So that is called mead for those who don't know. And I started making mead long before I started making wine out of my own juices from my, rhubarb and apples and berries and grapes. So at any rate, having that cane sugar or honey on hand, those two, especially when it comes to fermentation, I wouldn't recommend any of the others for fermentation because they're going to be higher mineral content. Your maple syrups, your definitely molasses, very high in minerals. The higher the minerals, the slower or less likely your things are going to ferment well. This is why raw honey or cane sugar, organic blonde cane sugar, still has some minerals, but not enough to kill a ferment. And it's cheaper than raw honey but healthier than white GMO beet sugar. Okay. So it's going to have its place. If you want to make your own homemade vinegars out of whatever you got growing in your garden, I like to make vinegars out of all kinds of herbs and scraps, like your apple peels and cores are not going to have the same amount of sugar as a straight apple juice, but maybe you want to keep your apple juice, and then, or turn that into a wine and then use the scraps for making a vinegar, then you're going to need that sugar to make that vinegar or make it or for any herbs. So if I'm gathering the different flowers and the rosemary and the nasturtium and whatever, and I'm making vinegars out of all these things, there's just there's little to no sugar in those, and you have to have sugar to make vinegar. You have to. You have to have sugar. Yeah, or I should say you have to have some kind of carbs. This is why vinegar can be made from, potatoes or rice or whatever because of the high carb content. And it has to have that to be able to convert it to alcohol and then convert it to vinegar. So even if you don't like joy in your life with your own homemade jams and chocolate syrups and caramel sauces, if you at least want to have your own homemade wines, even if you don't drink, but for doing the things I mentioned and homemade vinegars, then you do need to have some sugar on hand. And especially for the fermentation, again, either raw honey or organic cane sugar. One of those two is going to be best for making those kind of ferments. And so yeah, I mean, and here's the other thing too. Remember, in a grid down situation, if you're worried about, I mean, calories are going to be important. Nutrition is going to be important. So obviously, you're not going to just sit around and eat a bag full of organic cane sugar because of the calories. But it's okay to add those calories in because you're going to need them. Just make sure you're getting plenty of other very nutritious food. I might have had a delivery or something. That's probably why Luna's going ballistic. Um, she barks at everything anyway. Somebody could just like walk by on the other side of the street, not even on, or our street is pretty narrow out here anyway. But I mean, even if they weren't very close to the house, a leaf blows by. Rah, rah, rah. She barks at everything. So yeah, vinegar is really easy to make though. And you know what? I just kind of read an article years ago and then just tried it. I'm like, hey, it works. I remember I was scared. And I through practice and then experimentation, I just kept trying and I've had some that didn't turn out great. Like I've had some that turned to vinegar but had a terrible flavor, like some of the pineapple rind vinegar. Some of it turned out tasted like pineapple, it was definitely vinegar, and some of it took on a very weird taste, and I know it's coming from the rind. And I've had other people say the same thing, and it's like, well, if it ends up tasting like that, then I find other uses for it. It can become a cleaning vinegar, it can become a hair wash vinegar, or it can be the vinegar I put in the chicken's water because they don't care. They don't care. I just put a little in there for their health. And so at any rate, let me see here. Let me make sure. But yeah, anyway, all these things, all these different kinds of things, even the maple syrup, they can all have multiple uses. And I think it's a good thing to have these things stocked up, especially if you don't think, if you can't grow sugar cane, you can't keep bees for yourself, and you certainly can't find non-genetically modified sugar beets these days, then, having ways that you can have stuff like that on hand so that you can keep these other things going, I think is incredibly important. So does anybody else have let me scroll back first. Let's see. Yeah, I have a whole playlist. I think Deb shared a link down here. Yeah, the vinegar playlist. And I think I moved to the top of that playlist my most recent vinegar making video, which I think by now is a few years old, but every time I make a new one, I try to answer questions that I know I'm going to get because after doing this for 10 years, you start to get used to the kind of questions you're going to get asked. Butter and animal fats were killing us until they found CHF skyrocketed when margarine and Crisco took their place. Isn't that something? Yep. Growing up mostly, and I was born in 66, so I just turned 60 a few days ago. So growing up mostly in the 70s, margarine everything. I think I shared this before. Mom believed all that. Mom always tried to be more healthy. She would never buy Wonder Bread, even though I really wanted Wonder Bread because that's what my friends ate all the time, and I tried it, like, if I was at their house, and I thought it was really good. Mom liked whole wheat bread, and she bought that because she knew it was healthier, and unfortunately, I really hated the taste. It wasn't until I started grinding my own flour that I realized the reason I never really liked wheat bread is I didn't like the red wheat that is most commonly used. And when I found out there was such thing as hard white wheat, so much better. Yes, I'm only 60. I'm a little baby, even though I've got 4 grandbabies now. It doesn't matter how old anyone gets, there's always going to be someone much older. I know you're not that much older, Tyler, but that's going to tell you you're a baby. It doesn't matter. I'll never not be a baby. Anyway, I was 12 when you were born. Oh, see, it's only 12-year difference. But yeah, you're old. See, I can dish it right back, Tyler, and you know it. Uh, let's see, what does it say here? You are very welcome to step away from the camera a couple minutes if you need to. Me? Oh, because of the dog. Or the grandbabies when they're, but this time it's just the dog. The noisy dog. Wednesdays are the best because I don't have the dog. And yeah, and then if Jace is here, then not here, then I don't have anybody but currently the chicks for at least another week and a half. Usually they're in here for about 2 weeks, and then it's like, okay, you guys are too big for this box now. It's time to move you out to the big coop. And I'm not sure this will be different. I've never hatched out 2 batches so close together. So I don't know if by then I'll have the other chicks out of that bigger box that I keep in the coop in there. By then, I'm thinking probably not. So I'm not sure how well that's going to go. That'll be interesting to find out. We'll see. It could be utter chaos. Terry wants that shirt that says, "I'm still a hot chick." It comes in flashes. There you go. Let's see. What did Deb say? What did Deb say? What did I miss? I have great grandbaby number 4 due about the end of the year. Congrats. Great grandbaby number 4. So I wore my chicken shirt again. And the reason I wore my chicken shirt isn't just because I've got chicks over there and because I really like my dandelion chicken shirt, but because I really wanted to wear this shirt and it's very fall looking. So I was trying to make it a little more springy feeling. I like this shirt though, because if I make 3 different videos out of this live, then I have more colors to choose from to add to the thumbnails. And that's silly. I'm so silly that way. So anyway, those were the 3 main things. I'll probably pick out another 3. I'm not necessarily saying next week I'll do the same topic again with 3 different things. I might have a different topic by then, but at some point I'll probably do another 3 things. And again, please, you guys, in comments or in the chat, share based on the 3 that I shared here. Share why you would store up on any of these things. What's important to you about maybe stocking up on nuts or stocking up on dairy powders or stocking up on some kind of sugar, be it honey, maple syrup, cane sugar, or all of the above. So I'm wearing a fall shirt. It fell off the hanger, so I put it on. Were you able to let it like hang it above you and then just let it fall onto you? Because that would make it really easy. Just you don't have to work at it. Pants that you just step into. I mean, no hands required, kind of like my Kizik shoes I like so much. So, though I don't know that I'll ever buy any more Kiziks. They've done away with the kid sizes that were shoes that would actually didn't look like little kid shoes, and they won't make any shoes smaller than a 6. And their prices have gone up incredibly, so I don't know. That's why I decided to try the Merry People boots. I'm really happy with them so far. I've worn them a few times and went and stood in a deep puddle with them, and I love them. Really would like to get a few more colors, but, anyway, I don't need them right now. I just am thinking, "Oh, maybe I should get at least another pair or 2." I'm the kind of person that doesn't mind stocking up on a good shoe or a article of clothing, not because, "Oh, I gotta have one in every color." Though I like that, it's fun, but also because it's like, what if I can't get these later down the road? And these boots are a great multi-purpose boot. So, and Pat does the same thing. If he finds a good price on some boots that fit him, and that's the other thing with the married people is I can get them small enough that they fit me. They have the European sizes, so I can get the smallest European size, and they're not too big like the Kizik size 6 is. So, yeah, I typically wear, it depends on the style. I typically wear 3 to 4 in kids' shoes. So, and sometimes I can wear a 6 and it fits okay, but most brands are, it's just they're too big. They flop around on my feet. So, green powders and squash powders are massively versatile. Soup thickeners, pies, cookies, it works in so many things. Yeah, that's why I like my squash powders and the like. But, anyway, what I'm going to do, because it's already been an hour and I got a couple more different side points I wanna cover. A little more serious, but, um, the first one is every now and then I'll get somebody that emails me out of concern when they realize where I live, or they'll comment. I haven't got many of these in a long time, but, like, some people will be like, "Well, aren't you worried about the super volcano? Or aren't you worried about the massive, like, 300-year earthquake that's supposed to hit Washington State?" Well, here's the deal. And a lot of times it's like some people just really think I should up and move because I should be afraid of all these things around us. Now, I mean, there's Mount St. Helens, there's Mount Rainier, and apparently both of those have been showing a little bit of action these days. I haven't been paying that close of attention to it. But here's the deal. Uh, no matter where you live, there's always going to be some big, massive thing that you're gonna have to be afraid of. No matter where you move, we can move from here and end up living in tornado country, or living in another place that's highly prone to earthquakes, or live next to a different volcano. We don't live next to Mount Rainier or Mount St. Helens, but they're not super far from us. My sister lives pretty close to Mount Rainier. Um, but it doesn't mean it wouldn't affect us if one of those blew. Because even when I was living in Wenatchee and Mount St. Helens blew, and I would say Mount St. Helens is probably, I know it's got to be a very minimum of a couple hundred miles away from Wenatchee where I grew up, and yet within a few hours of the mountain blowing, we had some pretty thick ash falling on us. So I would say we live probably about the same distance on the where we are now in Washington here in Forks, even though Wenatchee's central Washington and Forks is way over western Washington on the peninsula. We're probably about the same distance from Mount Rainier and Mount St. Helens as we were on the other side. But yes, our area, they've been predicting for a long time that we're expecting this massive we're overdue for a massive earthquake here, and it could happen at any time. And we've had some minor earthquakes that really did nothing but rattle a little bit of stuff, cause some lights to swing or whatever. I've never felt any of them. Other people are like, "You felt that?" No. Maybe it's because I'm always on the move. I don't know. But anyway, there was a lady that emailed me, and I appreciate her concern, and I think she just felt she needed to let me know because she knows somebody who had a prophetic dream or something like that, that, God was gonna judge and destroy Seattle, something like that, and they thought I'd let me know. Well, as far as being, a Christian, and believing in the Bible, There's really no escaping other than death. There's no escaping what's going to come. We know what the Bible says, but we also know who wins. All right. We also know that death is 1 in 1. That's the death ratio. 100%. Whether it be now, 10 years from now, 30 years from now, I don't know. We all have a number, we all have a ticket, and when that time is up, it's up. And I have enough faith that when it's my time to go, it'll be my time, and I'm trusting God with that. If I believe also in being as prepared as possible for everything, as possible. And it doesn't matter where you live. You're not There's no completely escaping something that could happen to you. Maybe it's going to be another um tsunami for some people. A- Anything. It doesn't matter where in the world you live. You could live your life absolutely in fear of what may happen. Or you can do the best you can to put up for hard times and then just live your life. Okay. Even if you're not a believer. Okay. I don't want my messages to ever be like, well, only if you're a Christian. I mean, this message should be for everyone. Focus on the good things in your life. Do the best you can to prepare. I know me. I think for a lot of us women, as part of just being a woman, we worry about everything. I think men do too, but they worry about different everythings. I know as a mother and a grandma, you think when you're young, you have kids, and when they move out, you can stop worrying about them. As you ladies watching me now know, who have kids and grandbabies, you don't. It never stops. You never stop worrying about your kids. And then you have the grandbabies. You never stop worrying about your grandbabies. You never stop worrying about your spouse. You never stop worrying about how you going to get all your chores done today. We always have enough on our plate to worry about that we really shouldn't, especially if we're believer. We know we're not supposed to live in fear and worry. We're supposed to keep giving it to God every day. And I have to do this like every single day because I'm always worried about my children. Doesn't matter how good they're doing. It's part of being a mom. And why do I want to add more worry on top of all that about things that may or may not happen? Do I want to do the best I can to be prepared in the event this happens? Sure. Doesn't mean we'll make it out alive though. Doesn't mean that everything that we've worked so hard to put up can't be gone just like that. And that's the reality of it. But I also know I have this peace of mind that at least I can get through more minor events. I can get through power outages. I can, I can get through maybe a storm that prevents the grocery trucks from coming into our very small, very, very remote town. Some people seem to forget we're very remote. We don't have certain stores that everybody else has, just, a hop, skip, and a jump away. And we've been an island before, and we could become an island again. I know that I'm prepared for things like that. But if I was to add all that worry and stress and fear on to me, then the thing everybody else should be worried about is that I'm going to worry myself into an early grave or become very, very sick from all the worry. You can worry yourself to death quite literally, and it's not worth it because you don't know what's going to happen. And even if you did, you might not be able to change a thing. So do the best you can to be responsible, to be prudent with the blessings God has given you, to plan and to put up what you can. Don't feel like you got to be like everybody else. Don't feel like you got to be like us or like Tyler or Deb or Linda or anyone else. Do what you can, do what works for you and the best you can, and take assurance in the fact that you're making the most out of what you have and what you can. And then again, if you are a believer, you know where you can put your trust. And if you're not a believer, find joy in what you have done. Find that assurance in what you have done and then live your life to the fullest. Enjoy your children, enjoy your grandchildren, enjoy your garden and your chickens and whatever it is that you have. And obviously, as a Christian, I would say, you know, you can always fall back, you can always come to God and He's there for you. And there's another place where you can have, or the best place where you can find peace and joy. But I don't wanna scare people away either. But I gotta get that message out there. If I didn't have my faith, I mean, I have my husband, he's very strong. I really appreciate him. But what if he was taken away? And if I didn't have my faith, I don't know where I don't know where I'd be. I don't know what would happen to me without that. So I know it offends some people when I talk about my faith, but it is an incredibly important part of who I am. And if I can't get any other message out there, I want everyone else to be able to come to and find that same peace and love and joy that they can also have. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get preachy or not trying to push my faith on anyone, but I would be wrong to not share that because it's a fire burning in my soul. It's got to get out. So anyway, sorry. Didn't mean to get all emotional and weepy. But it's that week, right? Some people call it Passion Week, some people call it Feast of Unleavened Bread, some people call it Passover week. And so obviously it's right there. It's right there. Thinking of that precious gift of salvation that we have. And so I can't shut that up. And I'm grateful. So at any rate, I just want everyone, regardless of where you are in life, regardless of what you believe, I want everyone to realize that living your life in fear it's not the way to be prepared. Maybe fear can be a good motivator when you see what's happening in the world to get you on the right track, but don't live your life in fear. Just move forward doing the best you can with whatever strengths and abilities and skills that you have. So, what did Tyler say? I won't push my faith on anyone, but if you don't have any, you're welcome to use mine. Okay. Whew. Let me get a hold of myself. Okay. All right. I had one more thing I was going to talk about that is also another. God is not the author of fear and confusion. Absolutely. So, this other thing, I guess it kind of goes hand in hand. This is the one that I found probably most disturbing, and it's not anything new. And it's something you guys have all seen too. But sometimes you choose to take a chance and try to interact and help bring um maybe bring a little peace to a situation the best you can to help try to be a voice of reason between two sides, especially two political sides, because you just want to see people stop fighting with each other. So the next thing I want to talk about is this whole idea that it doesn't matter where you stand politically. We still need to learn how to treat people like fellow humans, for crying out loud. It's so discouraging. You might see somebody protesting. If they're being peaceful protesters, you don't have to agree with what they're protesting about. But if they're being peaceful and they're practicing their right to free speech in the way that we're meant to do it, we need to be grateful that they're exercising the right that we at least still currently have for now. We don't know how long. We don't know for how long, but we have it right now. We don't have to agree with them, but to call people names and to rip them to shreds and talk down to them and act like they're little children, treat them as if they're subhuman, is not going to do one darn thing to get our point across to anyone. So you got to ask yourself this. So, I'm talking mostly, this is the kind of garbage you see in threads under some kind of political post. And people will rip each other apart, and they're not afraid to do it because they can hide behind the safety of their screens. And a lot of these people are Christians, or at least claim to be. So, what by tearing people apart and calling them names and treating them as subhumans, how is that getting your important points or message across? Especially if you are a believer. What kind of example are you setting of Christian love? So, for example, the other day, I'm usually pretty quiet anymore. I used to be very, very vocal about politics and my stance, and I'm not saying I never talk about it. I try not to have that on my channel for a few reasons because I know there'll be plenty of people that would disagree on both sides because I don't have a side when it comes to the right and the left. Obviously, having more conservative type values and more Christian type values, I'm going to have a much more in common with people on the right. But that doesn't mean that I agree with everything that the Republican Party is doing any more than the Democrat Party. So, our local town, as you guys know, there was a big protest all over, at least all over the United States. And there were some people in our small town that decided to participate. And there was a picture of them, and they were standing on the sidewalk. This is all I was able to see. They were holding up their signs, and let me tell you, there was a couple of their signs I could totally agree with. Yet, I mean, it looked to me like everybody was behaving. They're exercising you don't have to agree with it. They were exercising their right to free speech. And their comments under that post from other locals was just horrendous. And it was coming from both sides, people ripping each other apart. So I thought, I just got to say this. So I went in there. I just want to remind people, right? I just want to remind people that if you feel like what you have to say is important, screaming at people and calling them names, all that's going to do is cause them to turn you off. Anything that comes out of your mouth at that point is absolutely, there's no value to it because you've already decreased the value of your words by the way you treat people. So I prefaced what I was going to say on the fact that I don't get behind either one of these parties. I'm saying this because I want people to I don't want people to make an assumption about what I have to say next. And because my comment was directed at everyone and as lovingly and kindly as I could, I just expressed these feelings that, we really need to treat each other with respect, even if we don't agree. Because at least people are still exercising the right to free speech, even if we don't agree with what they're standing for or against. I got ripped apart for that. Most people agreed with me from both sides. But I also had those people from both sides, some far left, some far right, that were ripping me apart and making assumptions about me despite how I prefaced my post. One guy was really just totally asinine and started telling me that I supported this, that, and the other thing, all things I do not support, assuming I was 100% against the, you know, murdering of the unborn. And so one of the things I pointed out to him, I said, basically, he was doing exactly what I was trying to fight against. I said, "You made an assumption about me. You made a whole bunch of assumptions about me based on the fact that I'm not on your side. I'm not on the other side either." I say, "Here's an example. I'm 100% against abortion, but you didn't know that about me, did you?" I think this was not someone local because, people in other towns around could see this post and comment on it. But you just made an assumption. And I said, "Now how did your assumption, how did your comment help further any message you had to share?" And that right there is the point I'm trying to make. Not only is it important for us, even if we're not believers, even if we're not Christians, just as Americans, for crying out loud. If it's if we cannot express kindness and respect to each other, even if we absolutely do not agree, how do we expect them to ever hear our side? There was a time where people used to sit down and talk about these things and still be able to walk away and be friends, even if their views were totally opposite and they never could come to a common ground. But what we're seeing out here is people treating each other like animals. No, worse than animals. You shouldn't even be treating animals that way. And it's horrible and it's disheartening. And, but yeah, people from both sides. Another person from the other side, so the one guy was from the right, this other woman was from the left, and she's like, "That dumb phrase. It's dumb to me because people use it without even thinking." And that is, if you don't stand for anything, you'll fall for everything. I'm like, "Oh, so you're making an assumption just because I'm not, you know, I don't wear the blue or the red gang colors that I don't stand for anything?" That's a pretty assumptive comment. I have plenty enough that I stand for. Why do we have to be forced into a right or left paradigm? Why? We shouldn't have to be. And when we start pigeonholing people and assuming just because they don't agree with us on maybe one point that, oh, they're entirely a bad person or they believe all this, again, we're going to get nowhere in anything that we have to share. No matter how valid our points may be, no matter how important and maybe even how incredibly true they may be, I know that when people talk to me that way, I'm like, I don't care what you have to say from this point on because you can't even treat me like a human. Nothing you say has value to me. But the person that can treat me like a human, even if everything about what they believe is in total contradiction to what I believe, if they can sit down and have a good conversation with me and treat me like a fellow American, a fellow human being, I will listen to them. And you know what? Sometimes I actually learn something. It doesn't mean that I'll change my mind, but I might actually learn something that helps me to understand a person's point of view and realize I need to be careful about the way I judge others. Now, there are plenty of good people out there that don't do that. And I will say that. I've had far left liberals and atheists that have been very polite and kind to me and appreciate, not just on my channel, but locals appreciate the things I share, even though they're not afraid to say, well, I don't believe in God and I have a real hard time with that, but I really appreciate this about you. And they're never rude about that's fine. They could share that. I don't mind. My faith is not that weak that I can't handle hearing that. But they treat me like a human being. And so I don't mind reading and hearing their opinions about things that maybe would disagree on because maybe, just maybe, there's some value in what they have to say. And maybe there's even a little bit of truth there that we're not seeing because we're being forced into this box with these blinders on that we can see nothing else. And so I think I guess my main point is that just as human beings, regardless of your faith or lack thereof, regardless of the political party you may cling to, regardless of whatever country you're from, we can all find a common ground and we can love and respect each other despite all of it. And yes, it is very hard to respect people who do not respect you. So, you got someone coming and screaming in your face. It's like, okay, done with you, buddy. I'm done with you. It also means I don't have to retaliate in kind. That's that's the hard part. I will admit. I had to hold my tongue a few times with some people. I'm like, okay, nope, nope. I'm becoming just like them if I say what's really on my mind right now. I got to stop myself. It's like, Lord, give me strength. Give me the right words to say because I know if I open my mouth right now or my fingers, as the case may be, something's going to come out that will be wrong. And it's not going to validate any point I make. It's just going to make people go, see, she's just as bad as everybody else. I mean, we're all humans, right? We all feel passionately about different things. And none of us wants to be treated that way. And it's hard not to come back with ugly words when we ourselves have been spoken to that way. That's where it gets the hardest for me. So, I'm not afraid to admit it. And I still definitely still make mistakes and let things and I'll have to go back and go, oh, better delete that. That was bad. Usually I try to, not respond in a hurry, but maybe start to and then look at it for a bit and go, yeah, I better take that part out. So anyway, those are the two main points I wanted to talk about is that, the not living in fear. And then the other one about just treating people with respect and be the kind of, what's the old saying? Treat people the way you want. Oh, yeah, Tammy. And where does that come from? It comes from scripture. Love your neighbor as yourself. That's where the golden rule comes from. Comes straight from the Bible. So if you want to be treated with respect and you want people to hear what you have to say, you need to be willing to do the same for them. So, yeah, those who don't know their faith hide behind cliches and let the hearers fill in the blanks. Yeah, good point. Anyway, I do need to get in there and get them crackers made up. And again, you know what? Can you believe this? This is like I don't know how many shows we've done where I haven't been cut off yet. I I shouldn't have said it. It's gonna happen now. But I've managed to make it through all my ever since I come back on the live again. What has it been? Is this 2 months now? We've managed to make it through. I still keep putting them back up, those reboot streams, just in case. But I don't know, maybe whatever issue was going on before has been fixed. That would be nice. Or I've just been blessed to be able to not have to resort to my backup stream, but at least it's there. So I just want to say thank you to everyone. Thank you for coming in, supporting me. Even if you don't agree with everything I have to say, I don't expect yes men. I don't even want everybody to be yes men. How can I ever learn anything new? Right? Um, and just hanging out with me and being encouraging to me from all sides, it means a lot. It really does. And I enjoy this time that I get to just be real with you guys. Every time I say that, I think, okay, I hope people don't think that I'm not being real in my pre-recorded videos. It's not the same because I'm just talking to a camera or here I know there's live people on the other side of that camera and I can see them talking and we're interacting. And Patrick just walked in, so the dog is barking again. So anyway, I just want to say thank you again to everyone. I appreciate you coming in, and I do hope today's Friday. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I love you all, and take care, and God bless. Bye.